I'm going to define loss from a very personal perspective, especially because it's Christmas time and we have kind of two ends of the spectrum, right? The people that, oh, I love Christmas, and for some of those people, the reason is because it's an escape from the childhood chaos that they lived through. So maybe during the holidays, there would be a little bit reprieve where, at least we'd have something to look forward to. And then to the degree of chaos and the different ways in which you deal with that, it might be, screw the holidays. I can't take it. I hate them. Bah humbug. And all of those responses on the gamut from either, bad to good, it comes from a trigger response. It's like, how am I going to deal with whatever loss I had to endure in the first 9 years of life? And then how did that play out in themes throughout the rest of my life into adulthood? And so once again, I have so many stories and I'm going to share them because maybe one person will be able to relate. And that's basically all I'm supposed to do to answer the call on my life. Death is final. Okay? So when somebody goes, then you have like the 10 stages of grief, and they can not necessarily come in order, but you have an ending point. You know that there's nothing you can do to get this person to come back to you. It's a pet, it's not going to return. The greater loss that we have to grieve is going to be in dreams, ideals, maybe the hope of something, and hope deferred makes the heart sick. So in my personal situation, when I received this cute little puppy on the side of the road and he jumped into my lap, happened to be a Pomeranian, which is hilarious because I've only had 5 in my lifetime. I basically took that as a sign from God that I'm going to nourish and take care of this little one. Right there on the scene, saw the little number and name tag, and we called the number. It was like we left messages, we texted, and we said, hey, we have your precious little Pomeranian, and we're gonna take care of it until we hear from you. So brought it back to my place. I had my own Pomeranian at the time, and anybody who knows me will attest to the fact that that little one drove me nuts. And I didn't have a lot of mommy instincts coming out of me because he was a special type of anxious. So the two of them were getting along fine for the first few days, didn't hear from the owner, and I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna take this as a green light. Took it to the vet. It had some bowel problems. I had to get it special food. I had to do this, check a stool type of thing. And every time, I took him out for a walk, he would get diarrhea that I had to wipe his butt. Just the way it was. But 2 years ago, I had a dream that I was pregnant and I did not want to have the baby. And I was like, forget this, I'm not doing it. But the ending scene was I'm washing a puppy in one sink and then I'm drying it in a towel in the second sink. He poops in it and then I have to wash him again. So this is what I was living with, this little pepper Pomeranian. He was just amazing. And the difference about him between the other Pomeranians that I had was that he was kind of like limp, double jointed, kind of like a ragdoll cat. And that's been like my other dream. And so he just really met some therapeutic needs within myself and had every potential to be a service dog. I had him sitting with my clients, and still I'm hearing nothing back from the owners. So, I took it as my dream was confirmation, and I basically fell head over heels in love with this dog. And after 2 weeks, it was actually 15 days, according to this county, the dog is yours if someone hasn't claimed it. So there was, I'm gonna be as kind as I can, there was a do-gooder in the neighborhood, and she's kind of like the town gossip. So I, oftentimes would talk to her, pray for her, and I told her about my extraordinary story. That was my first mistake. That's kind of what people say to me today. They're like, oh, you shouldn't share yourself, put yourself out there. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of just telling stories in hopes that maybe some person can commiserate and maybe get healed. But she then knocked on my door and she said, I found the family. And I'm like, well, please give me what information you have, because I have information. It's a California number and I've reached out many times. I would love to, find out where they live, take back the dog, whatever. She's like, no, don't worry about it if you're keeping it. And I'm like, okay, well, that is the intention, because now I've had to take it to the vet and I'm caring for it and I've done my due diligence. So another month and a half go by, and now, he's like attached to my hip, and there's a rap at the door. It was 6 days ago, and she had brought the cops to my doorstep, and the family towing in line. And basically, I got the riot act. What are you doing keeping somebody else's dog? It's stolen merchandise. You should have known. So it was kind of good cop, bad cop scene. And it was like, some humiliation. And I was so shocked, like that grief started. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Took me right back to when I was young. It's like, oh, we've been here before. Shock is that first onset of like, this can't happen. This can't happen. This can't happen. And they were not interested in my story. They did not want to look at the texts and the phone calls that I had left, to basically say, do I have a say? And I watched him be taken away. The parents did not really seem as if they had gumption or desire to deal with this dog. I think that's the reason why I found him in the disarray that I did, but they have small children. So it was like, okay, how now do I forgive this messenger that thought she was doing the right thing, but I also know that messenger. So when we know somebody and the intention is kind of like the little suggestion of Satan, like in their ear, and so it's like, oh, let's just go pummel Angie's heart, rip it out and stomp on it. It was because I was coming into a place of accepting that I can be a good mommy and love something, because in the interim I had given away Ridgely to a good home that could love it much better, and I was really settling in. And that's the ripping effect, when we're white knuckling anything and our fists are firmly around that sucker, and we don't believe that God's going to give us something better if we just open up our hand. Instead, we believe he's prying it open, and then he's like ripping this thing and saying, it's mine, ha ha ha. No, that's pretty much what Satan does. But nonetheless, my eyes were distracted. I was off on just blaming God. I was really hurting. And then I had to worship, and I had to settle in with the definition, even some people have asked me, of how do we deal with alienation and or estrangement. This is going to be the grieving of moments where you've lost something that is out of your control. Maybe there's shame involved. Maybe there's, humiliation, accusation, all of the injustices that come with and on top of loss are those things that are much harder to mourn. They are the ones in which you will have to allow yourselves the waves of crying or weeping that come, and then the bargaining thing, like I'm going to go get this thing back, and then the negotiation that goes on internally. And all of these are represented by different parts that really do have a vantage point that's trying to fight for you making sense of something that you may never see again. So when it's somewhere out there and you're stuck in that mourning process, I'm going to encourage you to give you the right to do so. And that means every kind of hatred, accusation that you want to put out, and then you want to have an argument with God over, I say do it, because you're going to not allow bitterness to take root, and it's going to be that thing that he can just pluck out very easily when you finally have surrendered and say, I trust you. I need you to give back to me what Satan has stolen from me, because I do believe that all good things come from heaven and that all bad things come from hell. So if it's going to be anything to bring an onslaught of real suffering and pain, then you know the enemy's involved. So that's where we can just say alienation and estrangement, we're waiting. We're in waiting for the full restoration and wholeness of our heart, and we expect it to come to pass.